right, thanks everybody for joining me once again here on Aftershocks TV, and we got a great one for everybody today, as I'm pleased to have with me on this episode. We got guitar extraordinaire Mr. Marc Rizzo joining us. Marc, man, thanks for coming on. How are you doing, bro?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, cool, man. Well, let's get right to it. Marc, EGREGORE, new single and video from your new project, Revenge Beast. Everyone can purchase and listen to the track now on all MP3 and streaming platforms. First released single from the band's upcoming self-titled debut, which is set to come out in mid-2023 on Upstate Records. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Marc, but I believe this officially marks the first of the new music that we've heard from you since you departed SOULFLY last year. So I guess we'll start things off by having you just, I guess, talk about the formation of Revenge Beast and, you know, how everything came to fruition with this band.
Yeah, so basically the guys in Revenge Beast are my good buddies, Doug, Jay, and Brennan. I had produced their band, Purgatory Earth, about maybe 4 years ago. They had asked me to produce one of their records, Baltimore. So I had driven down there and spent about a week with them, produced their record, recorded it, came out awesome. And, you know, we've always remained friends. And, you know, during the pandemic, man, when everybody was on lockdown, these guys were hitting me up, you know, asking me how I was doing, what was going on. So we just came up with the idea of like, yo, why don't we just like try to record some stuff and see what comes out of it. So we just started sending stuff back and forth to each other from our studios, and we started writing some music together. We were like, yo, this sounds heavy. This is some pretty brutal, heavy, old school death metal, man. So like, you know what, man, let's start a project. So we started releasing singles, you know, during COVID. And we were getting some really good feedback, man, like really good feedback from everybody. So we were like, you know, man, let's give it a name, man. Let's start a whole new project up. And that's Revenge Beast, you know, and then Mario over at Upstate wound up hearing it and offered us a deal. So we're super excited to get this record out.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I mean, with Revenge Beast, like you were saying, man, you definitely haven't put your foot on the brakes in terms of the heaviness that you were, you know, responsible for bringing the SOULFLY over the years. In fact, yeah, you've definitely, I think, upped it a notch here. Because, yeah, it really reminds me of that sort of mid-90s death metal sound, sort of like in the same vein of like Morbid Angel's Dominion. It's got that, obviously, the thrash and death blend, but it's also got that groove metal vibe to it as well on a lot of the tracks, especially in the song I Am. It's really got that groove to it. And like I was saying, I mean, obviously, it's pretty much, you know, very similar to what you did with SOULFLY, but obviously more death metal centric. So I guess just talk about a little about the musical direction of it and, you know, of Revenge Beast and how you approached the songwriting process on this project differently than what you've done with SOULFLY over the years.
Well, you know, basically, I had a lot to do with a lot of those records, like Enslaved from SOULFLY and the records I was part of. And so I basically was just like, I'm going to take that same vibe that I brought to SOULFLY, that thrashy, kind of more technical vibe. Because prior to me joining SOULFLY, you know, it was still kind of more nu metal-ish. So I kind of brought in that thrash vibe, that death metal vibe. I've always been a big fan of like old early 90s death metal, Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation and Obituary, Deicide, Morbid. So with Revenge Beast, that was definitely the idea, was to continue with the songwriting that people maybe know me for from my past. And do it, but make it even more heavier. You know, there was no thought about doing anything light. You know, we wanted everything to be just heavy riffs, breakdowns, and technical riffs, a lot of solos. And the one thing that's really exciting is working with our singer, Jay, man. Jay's got some really cool lyrics, which is something, yeah, I'm really not a big fan of like what people are really saying, you know, but Jay's lyrics really open up your mind and get you to think about a lot of really cool, interesting topics. So it's really cool, man. We got a great writing team. Everybody is part of the writing process. You know, it's all four of us putting down ideas, and it's a full band effort. So I'm really excited for it.
Well, yeah, it's something you just talked about, and I'll just get the soulfly questions out of the way. But like you said, you really were responsible for bringing that heaviness to Soulfly when they were still a new metal band. And I think a lot of fans, I mean, a lot of fans do know that and understand that, but I also think there's a bunch of fans out there who maybe might have thought that was just Max, maybe simply returning to his old form, like on the earlier Sepultura records. They might not have been aware of how really influential and responsible you were in changing the Soulfly sound at that time. I mean, so do you view Revenge Beast? Obviously, not only as just an outlet to play the kind of metal that you enjoy doing, that you're really well at doing, but also as a way to show maybe some other people that weren't aware that you were essentially sort of the catalyst when it came to the creation of that new improved sound of the band back in around 2004 when you joined right before the Prophecy record.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, I know people, there's the people that like the older, more new metal stuff. And that's cool, if that's what people are into. But I definitely did bring that thrash vibe, I mean, when I first got the gig in '03, I
Mhm.
wasn't a fan of like the first two Soulfly records. I was always more into old school Sepultura, Beneath the Remains and Arise and KSED. So I was always about getting it back to that sound, coming up with riffs, adding to the sound, and try to do things. My favorite part of Sepultura was always Andreas's guitar playing. I mean,
Mhm.
in my opinion, he was like in the top 5 best thrash metal guitar players from back in the day. It was like Alex Skolnick. It was Andreas. It was who else? Rocky George from Suicidal
Mhm.
Tendencies. Like, these are all my favorite players. So when I had the opportunity to do Soulfly, it was like, man, I want to bring it back to that sound, and I definitely did. I mean, I definitely pushed for it in the studio. Another person that was a big part of that sound too was our old drummer Joe Nunez. When we first got into the rehearsal rooms and started working on music, he was another dude that was a huge fan of old death metal and thrash metal. So we would come up with all these riffs, these ideas. We definitely were the unsung heroes. But like you said, the fans definitely recognize it. You would come to the shows and you would see what's up and see it live. So.
Sure. That. Yeah, I never remember reading, an interview some a while back that Max had done where he essentially stated what a lot of us already have known about you, that he praised you as being really a true guitar hero and that you were pretty much a hidden gem. And he kind of liked it that way because he essentially was concerned that if people really knew how good of a player you were, that he would pretty much probably lose you to a more high profile and established band. I mean, did you ever at any time, maybe during your tenure with SoulFly, think that maybe there were decisions being made so that people wouldn't really discover how essential you were to the band and how skilled you were overall as a guitar player at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I definitely got. I had some pretty big opportunities that came my way.
Mm.
That I had the rug pulled out from underneath me. And
Oh,
so many
wow.
from certain people that didn't want me to go off to do other things.
Mhm.
But it's all good, man. Listen, man, I'm a humble dude. I live a very very cool, exciting life, man. And I got an awesome guitar collection here, and
Mhm.
I also am a collector of fine coffees. So between my coffees and my guitar, I'm pretty excited all day long.
Nice. Hell yeah. Well, great. Well, let's move on. Let's get away from that. Let's move on to another band. Obviously, you're back with, and where we all initially discovered you from. That's of course El Nino. You rejoined your old bandmates last year. I know you guys wrapped up playing a bunch of festivals over the past summer, and last we heard, I knew there was going to be a new record that was supposed to be put out or will be put out pretty soon. It's been on hold, I know, but so I guess just talk a little bit about what's going on with El Nino at the moment, and when we can maybe expect to hear some new music.
Yeah, so we basically the whole summer we toured up out in Europe. We did all the big festivals. We went out, did some support shows with Five Finger Death Punch. We opened up for like Metallica at Hellfest. Bunch of shows. We did Bloodstock. We did Wacken Festival. So we had a pretty busy summer. And the new record, hopefully it'll be out soon. I mean, I know we're just doing some finishing touches on it. And I'm excited, man. It's a new era of the band. It's all a lot of new people. The original people are Ari, Laspina, and myself, and now we
Mhm.
got Marcos Leal singing for the band, who is just incredible, and Miggy and Sal and Danny's back on percussion, and it's just a whole new vibe, man. And I'm really digging it. The new music is definitely more metal. It's heavier. The melodic stuff is like I think a little more darker. So when I first heard the music, they originally had asked me just to do some solos on it.
Mhm.
Again, we reconnected during COVID. Um,
Okay.
once that happened, we started talking, and they asked me to come back and do some shows, some tours, and the fans have been really seeming to be really into it. So I am too. So we're
Yeah.
forward with El Nino.
Very cool, man. Yeah, well, there's no doubt, that 90s, metal nostalgia is kind of in full force at the moment. I mean, the 80s, had their period over the last 10, 15 years or so, but really the 90s revival is kind of in full force. It's great to see. And of course, El Nino was one of those 90s induced bands who are doing just that. And I did see in an interview, you just kind of basically brought it up right now, where you said that it is a very different band right now, and it's much heavier than before. So, I mean, are you doing maybe right now the same with El Nino, similarly what you kind of did when you joined Soulfly back in the day, which is to kind of bring that extra heaviness to the band that maybe was, there's always been a heavier band, but like you said, it seems more darker and heavier. Is that something that you wanted to do as well when you joined El Nino again?
Well, I think the band was already doing that even after I had left. It seems they were getting heavier and heavier. I think with all the new guys in the band, it's definitely that direction is definitely heavier now.
Mhm.
I came back in. A lot of the record was already written, so
Okay.
parts that I added to the record was just a lot more like solos, melodies, and some more technical riffs here and there where I was able to do it. So the band was definitely looking to go into a heavier direction, and I think I definitely added like a lot more busy riffs, and solos, which makes it more metal, in my opinion.
Well, then speaking too of the 90s metal, I know when El Nino, when you guys were taking off in the early 2000s, you guys are also in the forefront of the Latin metal movement at that time. Bands like yourselves, Puya, Ancla, it was a bunch of bands that were really coming out that time and bringing that really cool, unique sound to metal. And what's cool too is a lot of different instrumentation that people weren't used to hearing mixed with metal. A lot of those different, elements just gave it such a fresh sound, and just with those Latin undertones is something that was really enjoyable. And I know you of course incorporate all that into your solo material as well. So I mean, how important really is it to you to really maintain those Latin elements within your sound and style when you're writing for, any of your bands or projects? I mean, are you conscious of it and purposely add those elements when you're writing, or is it simply just part of your musical DNA to do so, and thus it just kind of comes out naturally when you're writing songs?
Yeah, I think it's natural because I've always listened to a lot of like flamenco guitar. And I've always loved those like scales that they use in flamenco, the harmonic minor
Mhm.
style. I've always written in that kind of context. And yeah, it's natural to me. I mean, if you listen to like, if you were hanging with me one day, I'm listening to Paco de Lucia 1 minute, and the next minute I'm listening to Station. So it was always, I've always like melding the two styles together, and I've been doing that, since I joined El Nino in like '97. Originally El Nino was more of a New York hardcore band,
Yeah.
Latin vibe, only as far as like percussion and some of the lyrics in Spanish, and some of the rhythms. But I basically brought in that like acoustic vibe, being like, hey, let's go into like a flamenco acoustic breakdown here and there, and it's just something that I've always really been into.
Yeah, I remember listening to El Nino a lot on WSOU. They, like you said, right around 96, 97, when it was more of a hardcore band. And yeah, I mean, those early, El Nino stuff was really good too. If people haven't checked that out, I mean, great
Great
stuff.
with Jorge from Marauder singing. Jorge's a great
Mhm.
friend, awesome dude, and I've always been a big fan of Marauder. So that a lot of that was the reason why I had joined El Nino in '97. I was like 20 years old, man. And it was because I was a really big Marauder fan, and Dave Chavarri was in Propane. I was a huge Propane fan,
Mhm.
and it just so happened that at that time, as much as I was into a lot of hardcore and I was in hardcore bands, thrash bands around my area, I was also studying flamenco guitar, and really wanted to incorporate it. And it was like the perfect band to be in to do that, because they were already starting to do songs in Spanish, and then also incorporate some Latin percussion to the music.
Doubt. I have to believe, Mark, that right now, in your career, I mean, one of the best parts about being in the position you're in now, with having several different outlets now for your music, and having really just the freedom to simply do what you want to do, is that you'll now have the time really to focus on, I think, promoting yourself as an all-around, not just a riff master, obviously, but you're virtuoso. You are a guitar virtuoso. Anyone who's heard your solo stuff will know that, because that's something I think that many, a lot of people maybe in the middle world aren't really aware of, is that you could do so much more than what you've just done on Soulfly. But now you can kind of focus on that rather than obviously furthering and carrying on another artist's legacy. Pretty much what you essentially do in Soulfly, you can now focus really on your own legacy. Is that something that you really want to focus on now that you have that freedom to do what you want to do, and you no longer have to really, have a spotlight where you're just kind of sharing it, or you're on the sideline now? You can really further your own legacy instead of helping someone else further theirs, like you did.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's time now for me to get credit for all my songwriting and what I bring to the table. COVID really opened up my eyes with that. With just the band just did me dirty during that era. There's no other way of looking at it. The facts are all there. And I was like, now it's time for me to just focus first and foremost on my solo stuff, because that's my thing. That's where I go into the studio and I write all my own music from beginning to end.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was definitely the first thing I was concentrating on, just because that's the music I love. I love instrumental guitar music, whether it's flamenco, jazz, or metal. I'm really into instrumental guitar music. Um,
Mhm.
Revenge Beast project, came onto the table. So I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna go forward with that, and El Nino and all these projects. I'm part of the songwriting process, and we all split that equally between Revenge Beast and El Nino, and then also like my solo stuff. So yeah, it was a conscious effort to be like, yo, this is my time now to move forward and get the credit that I deserve. So.
Sure. No, absolutely. You definitely deserve a lot of credit, man. And the other thing too is I'm sure you've had no shortage of suitors. Like you mentioned before, you've had opportunities before to play with other established artists. But can you now, after going through what you did for 18 years with Soulfly, I mean, can you ever see yourself joining an already established band like that in the future, considering your experience that you went through with Soulfly for, I guess, almost 2 decades, and also really being in a band that essentially is not necessarily yours? Can you see yourself doing that? Maybe again, if the opportunity presents itself, or you prefer really just to do like what you're doing now, just have a few projects and focus mostly on your solo stuff?
Yeah, I really, at this point at my age and my home life, I definitely do prefer just doing my own thing right now, being on my own schedule. That's the most important thing is being able to make plans in my life. Like when I was in Soulfly, there was no making plans. You were on the train and you just went along for the ride, and that was your priority.
Mhm.
So now it's definitely great to have that freedom to do whatever I want to do, basically. But if the opportunity arose of something that I want to do that was like something really cool, and we talked about it and sat down and talked about all the details, and yeah, absolutely, I would do it if it was something special. It meant something to me.
Okay, sounds good, man. Well, now just getting back to Revenge Beast, the first single, as we said, Egregore. So now what's the plan in terms of, maybe the estimated release date or for the record, or any live shows you're going to do? I guess just kind of give us an overall kind of idea on what you guys are looking to do as a band to promote the record.
Yeah, so we're gonna be dropping our first single for Egregore, I think like first week of December, with the video that goes along to it. And then we're hoping to get this record out. I'm gonna say now, like come the new year, maybe hopefully
Okay.
February, maybe beginning of February. Um, and yeah, we're definitely gonna do like a record release party. And we're talking to a couple different booking agents and see if we could get on some tours. Um, we're just going to see what happens. I mean, nobody really, I think is we're not looking to just get on the road, and play in front of 3 people. We
Sure.
get on some big tours and push the project, and see what happens. I mean, we're all serious about it, but we just got to see what possibilities come up and what we could jump on and what for and make it happen. All the financial situation, how expensive gas is. So we just got to see what happens in the future here.
Sure, man. And with your solo stuff now, do you have anything that you're working on now in terms of new music or potentially going out there? I know you had done some shows with over the last year or so. I know you did some shows with your solo stuff. You still have anything in the works with that going on right now, or is it mostly you're focusing on Revenge Beast at the point?
Yeah, I'm always doing my solo stuff. I'm trying to finish my new solo record. It takes time because it's very intricate stuff, so it takes a little longer to record my solo stuff. But actually, I mean, that's the reason why my solo project is probably my main project. Really, is because it's so much more affordable for me to get out on the road and make it happen, because it's just me by myself a lot of times. And I just play to a backing track, and sometimes it sounds like, oh, that's boring. It's one guy up there on stage, but after people see my show and they see the vibe I bring out there, I think it goes over really good. I'm a fan of other instrumental guitar players, guys like Michelangelo Badio does it like
Mhm.
this. I've seen Paul Gilbert do it like this before. So being that it's just me out there on the road, it's one ticket to fly out, one hotel room. It's just a lot more affordable for promoters to book me. So yeah, I'm always doing my week. Like for instance, I played out in Montana 2 weekends ago, and I did 4 shows out there, and I had a great
Wow.
time. And I'm hoping to get some more gigs coming up. I'm talking to a new booking agent now also, and hopefully come the new year, I'm going to be booked solid doing my solo thing.
Yeah. Now it's interesting too with this, just the audience for, for people that like really enjoy the instrumental stuff, it's and that was something obviously that was really big in the 80s and 90s when you had guys like Satriani and so forth that were really out there and bringing a lot of just, regular, I guess, music fans in general, whether you're into rock or not, into, just to really be included into that sort of scene and that audience. I mean, how is that now compared to, I mean, you've been doing that for quite some time. Do you see those audiences maybe, getting better? Are people really, I guess, embracing that more? Because, there's a lot of purists in metal or just music in general that are, if they don't see a band with a singer, they're just not really into it. Are you seeing a lot of people that are starting to gravitate towards that more so? I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of the Soulfly fans and just fans of yours over the years with El Nino and any of your projects are showing up. But are you getting, like, is there a good, I guess, response in terms of not just people coming to the shows, but also buying your music as well? I mean, is it pretty doing pretty well right now, that kind of scene?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
guitar scene is probably bigger now, than I think it ever was. Really, believe it or not, with bands like Leaders, and there's that new band Polyphia.
Mm.
People, there's definitely that fan base out there that loves instrumental guitar, and it's a lot of musicians that come out to the gigs. And it's a lot more of people just sitting around, watching every note you play. Different for me, but yeah, there's a scene for it, man. And I love it. Like I said, I've always loved instrumental music. The thing with what I do is I try to make it where there's a lot of heavy riffs going on, a lot of breakdowns in my instrumental music. So I think even people that aren't into instrumental guitar still would get into my show because it's still a heavy show. I put cover songs in, from past bands I was in. And it's crazy because a lot of times it seems like a guitar clinic because it's just me up there by myself, but usually a pit will break out, people are slam dancing, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, fantastic, man. Well, everyone, go ahead and check out Marc when he's on the road. In the meantime, also, you can go ahead and check out Egregore, the new single from Revenge Beast. It's coming out on Upstate Records. The song's out now on Upstate Records. Look forward to the record in mid-2023. And Marc, where should we send the viewers and listeners to so they can purchase Egregore and just keep up with the band and the news, just with the band and, of course, with your solo stuff and everything you got going on in general?
Yeah, so we have all the Revenge Beast, Instagram, Facebook. I think we have a YouTube channel. You can get over to the Upstate page. They got all our info and links too. And also they could just follow me also on my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my Facebook. I'm constantly putting links up to all the Revenge Beast things that are going on.
Fantastic. All right. Once again, Revenge Beast, a new single, Egregore out now. And Marc, man, thanks so much for coming on Aftershocks. We appreciate it, man. And yeah, look forward to seeing you on the road pretty soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.